What is up, my friends? Getting better at this a little bit more every single time I do this, but I just wish that I could have a way to play the music that I'm listening to before I go live. Just because it fits so perfectly with the theme for today. And the theme for today is what to do when you're having a bad day. Can anybody out there relate to having a bad day? So I had a bad day today. I had something that I thought was a pretty sure thing, and it ended up not working out whatsoever. And it was a total shock to me. And that's kind of the worst, isn't it? Because when you think something's going to go really well, and then it completely fails, those are always the worst, because it's different when it's a total surprise. When things go bad and it's a total surprise, you're like, well, this is life, it happens, whatever. But when you're kind of betting on a sure thing and you're like, no, this just makes sense, this is absolutely the way to go, and it just implodes right in front of your eyes, you're like, what is going on here, right? And correct me if I'm wrong, but that's kind of difficult to deal with, right? So I'm talking today about what to do when you're having a bad day. And so I had a list of things that I was going to suggest and recommend, and it just so happened I had on my Spotify playlist my own music, because I make my own music, and I make music that I actually like, and so I listen to my own music. I hope that's not vain. And I was listening to one of the first songs I ever released, and these are the lyrics, okay? This is what it feels like, breaking on the inside. Your words like a sharp knife. I'm dying on the inside. Super uplifting, right? But as I was setting up, that was the second to last song I heard before I went live. And it just brought everything into perspective, because I wrote that song, I composed that song, and compiled that song in December of 2022 at the end of one of the worst years of my entire life. And it was just a broken time in my life. And so I wrote this song, and it's a really depressing song. And that song came on right before I went live, and just listening to that song just had a way of just recalibrating my whole life and putting things into perspective, because yeah, today was a tough day for me. Maybe it was for you. Maybe it's been a tough month. Maybe it's been a tough year. Maybe it's been a tough decade. I don't know. But life is hard, right? And that's one of the reasons I do these podcasts, is because life is hard. And it's what we do with those hard times that's so important. You don't need a tutorial for what to do when life is great. Can we all agree on that? When life is going great, you don't need somebody to kind of coach you through the steps, because you just enjoy every single moment. But when life gets really hard, that's a different story, because it's so easy to just go down a spiral, just go down into a deep, dark pit. And today I was tempted to do that. And so it was so cool, because I have this whole list of things that I'm going to share that have really, really, really helped me get through difficult times. But that song was like the cherry on top for me, because that song was a reinforcement of the entire message that I kind of have for you today. And that is perspective. Because as difficult as today was, as many good ideas as I have, tools that you can put in your own toolbox to use when you're having a bad day, that song represented such a contrast from where I was in December of 2022 to where I am today, that it almost made it hard for me to have a bad day in light of that, because that was a really dark period of my life. And so all that to say, perspective is going to be one of the greatest gifts you have during times of adversity, because we're all going to go through difficult times. No exception. You could be perfect and end up hanging on a cross. Can I get an amen? Okay. And so the first thing I wanted to share with you with what to do when you're having a hard time is to gain perspective. And perspective is kind of everything. The quality of your life is really the quality of your perspective in and of and over and, through your life. Because you could have everything going for you, and all of a sudden your order gets screwed up in the drive-thru, or somebody says some negative thing to you and you lose it. Like, you got 185 things going really, really good for you, but one person says, you're a loser. And you take it to heart, and all of a sudden all your attention and focus goes on to what? That negative comment. Perspective says to not allow that negative thing overt influence over the whole. And that's our choice. We've been born with that. We have a gift. It's called free will. We get to choose what we think about. We get to choose what we focus on. We get to choose how we see situations. And this is especially important when choosing how we see negative situations. Because like I said, today was kind of a really bummer of a day for me. I had what seemed like a really sure thing, and that was kind of my fault. Expectation is the thief of joy. Can't remember who said that, but it's a great quote. It's absolutely right on. And I normally don't put my expectations in circumstances and situations and people outside of my own ability to control, which is me. So basically, I don't really have high levels of expectation whatsoever in life. I kind of have my expectations tampered way down low, because if you never want to be disappointed, just have your expectation low enough and you'll never be disappointed. But that's not necessarily the best way to live. Okay. And so an alternative to having low expectations of yourself, of others in life, is perspective. And that's what I went to today. I had a whole little outline prepared to share about perspective. And then the song that I had wrote back in December of 22 came on. And it just was like the exclamation mark on all my thoughts on perspective, because it reminded me of where I was and then where I am now. Because today, whatever I want to rate on a scale of 0 to 10, say today it was like a 4. I usually live it around like a 7, 8, 9, whatever. When I was in December of 2022, I was just coming off of a divorce. I was one of the once married, never divorced crew, like cut out the word divorce from the dictionary. But there I found myself divorced. It was amicable. We both agreed. We made each other absolutely miserable. Is it biblical? Have no support for that argument. None. But I knew that I wanted to die more than I wanted to continue in that marriage. And that was indication enough for me to say, hold on a second. I don't think this is the right course of action. So I made a change. Even still, it was brutal. So hard. You invest, like, relationships are the hardest thing you will ever do in life. You invest all your time, your will, your emotions, everything that you have into this relationship. But what happens when it doesn't work out? Like, what do you leave with? A lot of times it's just, you gave all that away, and maybe it doesn't come back to you. Maybe you don't get anything in return. And that's hard. But what's the definition of love? It's to give freely, not expecting anything in return. It's because you want to give something, right? And so if your motives are pure, even when you come away from a really difficult situation, like in a relationship or something like that, you can give so much of yourself. But if you're not giving just to get, I tell you what, that's going to soothe the pain of that wound a lot. So that's just kind of an aside. It's not anything like I was planning on talking about today. But going back to perspective, how you look at a situation, a circumstance, a relationship, is how you will end up seeing that circumstance or relationship or situation. And that's why it is so important to be intentional about how we are looking at things in life. For example, I had a major letdown today, super major letdown. And I could easily allow that to consume so much of my life. I could allow that to occupy 90% of my bandwidth, all my thoughts on these negative cycles. You know the thing. Man, I can't believe this didn't work out. This sucks. Life sucks. I'm such a loser. I made so many dumb decisions, blah, 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 blah. And it's all these negative thought patterns. But guess what? You think those thoughts one time, it's just a little bit easier to think them again. And then the next time you think about them, it's just a little bit easier to think those thoughts again. Because what they're doing is they're creating neural pathways in your brain. And if you want to change your life, you got to change your thinking. And if you want to change your thinking, you got to change your neural pathways. And if you want to change your neural pathways, you got to change what you're thinking about. And so you got to choose intentionally what you're thinking about in every given situation. So I had a really negative situation happen to me today. I was kind of expecting it to work out. So for those of you who don't know, actually most of you don't know, I haven't had to work for the last year and a half. Like, I've been so fortunate. Like, I've got to live the dream for the last year and a half. Like, after this really difficult time of divorce and separation, I was able to take the equity from the house that we had owned and the business that I had sold and basically live as a dilettante. And if you're not familiar with what the word dilettante means, it's someone who wanders aimlessly, not really good at anything. And that was the personification of me. And that's what I did. And it for the last year and a half, and it was wonderful. Like, we're not promised tomorrow, right? And so I'm not 1,000% in on the Carpe Diem crowd. Like it's just like, all we have is this moment. Let's just go in all in on this moment. Like, 'cause I'm pretty sure that we're going to get more moments. And so you don't want to go all in on this one because you don't know what's going to happen, in 5 minutes and, 5 months, whatever. But I'm really sure also that a lot of people that I have loved a lot went to bed one night and they didn't wake up the next day and they never saw it coming. And so I know for sure that we're not promised tomorrow. And so I do lean more toward the Carpe Diem movement, like live in this moment right now, presently, and make the absolute most of it because you don't know if you're going to be promised another one. And I think that's an absolute responsible way to live life. And so what I did is I really was in a rough spot after, my previous relationship and divorce and stuff. And I really needed to clear my head. I needed a break from life because I really believe I was on the brink of like a mental breakdown. Like, I was so, like, my blood pressure was shooting through the roof and I was super stressed out. And I was fairly certain if I didn't change course, I would end up as a casualty in some way, shape, or form, whether mentally, physically, whatever. And so I made the conscious decision to sell all that I had. Sell the primary assets that I had, my house and my business. And for the last year and a half, I've just been getting to do whatever I want. And I tell you what, I highly recommend it, friends. Like, it's a wonderful way to live. Don't wait till you're 65 because guess what? 65 isn't promised. Tomorrow's not promised, And I'm not saying, throw all you have now and, just live for this moment and don't think about the future. No, that's not what I'm saying at all, right? But I am saying to be able to gauge where you're at moment by moment, year by year, and to really ask yourself, like, if I died today, would I have any regrets? Like, if I died today, what is the legacy that I would leave behind me? Because that's one of the realest questions you can ever ask yourself. That is where the ultimate proverbial rubber meets the road. Because none of us are making it out of here alive. And I know I've said it a whole bunch of times. Maybe I'll say it every single time that I ever go live. But I think we all need the reminder. Because the cares and the worries of life, they have this tendency to just suffocate that reality and convince us that those things, those cares, those worries of life, just the things that we need to do every day are all important. But guess what? They're not. Do we need to pay our taxes? Absolutely. Do we need to provide for our children and our families? Absolutely. But are they the very purpose for our existence? Not even close. But that's what's so deceptive. And that's why perspective is so important when you're facing a difficult situation. How you look at that difficult situation is going to determine how you come out of that situation, how you look back at that situation, essentially how that situation becomes a part of you. If you really want to get deep with it. Never thought of it that way, but I'm a verbal processor and there you go. Because we can never unsee things that we see. We can never unexperienced things. Once we've experienced something, they are a part of us. We can suppress it. We can replace it. We can try to minimize it, whatever, but it's not going away. When you have a negative situation happen to you in life, it is so important to look at it in a way that is beneficial and helpful to you. Oh, Pat, thank you so much for sharing that, man. I always appreciate your comments so much. For example, today I was kind of in a hard spot. And isn't it funny how when we're in a hard spot, like that's the time when we seem to unearth the good stuff in our life. Like that's where we dig down to bedrock and find out what's really, really important. One of my favorite books in the Bible is Ecclesiastes. Probably never heard of it. That's fine. It was written by the smartest man who ever lived. His name is King Solomon. And he has this quote in there and it says, "It is better to attend funerals than parties." It is better to attend funerals than parties. And I really take it to heart because at funerals, you get the ultimate life perspective calibration because none of us are making it out of here alive. And if you can remember that while going through a hard time, it's going to take the sting out just a little bit. Okay. But that's perspective, right? And now I'm actually going to share what I actually had prepared to say today. Thank you so much for the encouragement for sharing that, Pat. I appreciate it so much, man. So, one of the things you can do for yourself in terms of helping you with perspective when you're going through a hard time is reminding yourself that you have survived 100% of the difficult situations and trials and tribulations that you have experienced up to this point in your life. Have you ever thought of that? Think of, just for a moment, close your eyes, use your imagination, unlock your memory. Think of times in your life that were so hard that you didn't think there was a way out, that you never thought you'd make it through, whatever, fill in the blank. Yet here you are, right? And if you're going through a difficult season right now, you're going through a difficult time, I promise you, unless you're bleeding out on the side of a highway or something, somewhere, you're going to make it through this time as well. And if you are bleeding out, I hope you can make it to the comments to tell me. And so I'll dial 911 for you. Happy to do that. No extra charge. Dark humor for sure. But the fact is, guys, there are people right now on this earth who are breathing their last breath. It might be any one of us. And that perspective changes everything. Let me ask you this. If you're going through a hard time right now, and all of a sudden you find yourself choking and you're literally breathing your last breath, how important is that difficult thing you're going through right now? Is it even get on the radar at all? I'm guessing not. Because in the last moments of our life, what's really going to matter is our relationships. I made a post earlier tonight from one of my favorite humans on earth, Pastor Raphael McManus. Irwin. What is his name? McManus is his last name. He's one of my favorite authors, favorite pastors. And he said, when you're young and immature, you focus on things. When you get a little bit older, you focus on experiences. But when you're truly mature, you realize that the most important things that you have in life are your relationships. And so that difficult thing you're experiencing right now, unless it is an extremely important relationship, it's probably going to fade into the background of your life and your role of wins that you've accumulated. You're going to get through this. Maybe that's the whole reason that I made this broadcast tonight, is just to tell you, you're going to get through this. I promise. Okay? It's part of the encouragement aspect of getting through hard times. The second thing is to really squeeze all you can from the experience. Don't just allow a negative experience to go by without acknowledging it. Like, that's the worst thing you can do. Suppress negative, oh man, I know I was all about Inside Out 2 when it came out to the theaters. But there was this scene, it was so great, where the old emotions from Inside Out 1 get kicked out of the control panel of the brain by the new emotions of puberty and teenage adolescence. And as they're getting kicked out, he says, "Oh no, we're going to become suppressed emotions." And they all end up in a jar, just kind of squeezed in there. It's a hilarious scene. You've probably seen it in the trailer. It's not an effective way to deal with negative things that happen to you in life. All right. In fact, the opposite is actually the best thing that you can do, is take and sit with those negative emotions, whatever they may be over. And you might not ever want to share the things that you're going through with anybody else, because you might think, oh, no, everybody think I'm stupid, or this isn't a big deal to other people, or whatever. Like, if it's a big deal to you, it's a big deal. Like, that's just the end of the story. Whatever loss you're experiencing right now, don't undermine it. Don't understate it. Don't think that it's not important, whatever. Like, acknowledge it. Like, look it right in the face and just kind of sit with it. Don't try to suppress it. Don't try to ignore it, whatever. Just sit with it. What can you learn from that? Because here's the thing. If you're experiencing pain in your life, there's a message being sent to you. It's an indication of something. Like when you're driving your car and a check engine light comes on, it's not just random. There's something that triggered that event. And if you're experiencing pain in your life, it's because something has happened that's causing you to say, like, hey, this is important. Say somebody you love passes away. Or a relationship that you thought was going to be forever doesn't end up working out. Or, in my situation, a job prospect that was like perfect, like in every step of the way is working out, but then at the very last step, it's like, no, not the time. Closed door. Sit with that. If you lose a loved one, what is that message saying to you? It's like, you really loved this person. This person was really important to you. That's the only way you can experience loss. Have you ever thought about that? Like, if you didn't care about somebody, you wouldn't experience loss. And so the fact that you're experiencing this deep grief, this sadness, this like remorse, this just like void, is simply an indication that this person was so special and so important to you. For goodness sake, don't ignore that. Right? A relationship ends. You thought it was going to be forever. And all of a sudden now you're packing up all your stuff and you're looking at all those years invested and it's just over. The pain that you feel in that situation is not to be ignored. Like, you lost time. You lost something you cared deeply about. Don't ignore it. And if I could go one step further, I would really suggest that you embrace it. Because emotions, like so many things in life, you can kick down the road all you want. You can procrastinate on dealing with emotions all you want. But guess what? They're never going away. What was it, Newton, that said matter cannot be created nor destroyed? I never connected matter with emotions until right now, this moment. But absolutely, it's true. You have to deal with them and synthesize them and invite into them the right perspective so that it's not a void, a black hole in your memory that's going to cause you harm and damage and regret and remorse and pain, or unnecessary pain, unneeded pain, self-inflicted pain every time you remember it. Like, if you think of a situation like a relationship that doesn't end well, and you're like, you say to yourself, well, it was because of me. I was the problem. And you just assume all these sorts of things. And every time you think about that failed relationship, you have this cloud of shame that accompanies it. That memory is never getting healed. I promise. The only way that I've found to heal those hard memories, those difficult times, personally, and if you're not a person of faith, trigger warning, it's to invite Jesus into those memories. Because your mind, your memory, the network of synapses and connections and experiences that you've had in your brain is rather remarkable. I actually often equate it to a city. Like if you've ever been on a plane and you're flying over the city you're departing from or landing into, you can see the layout of the city. It's like squares, it's blocks. You can just see, and there are some parts of the city that are lit up. There are some parts of the city that are dark. There are some parts of the city that are industrial. There are some parts of the city that are residential. That's your brain too. And when you have undealt with emotions that are painful, that are really harmful, but that you don't know what to do with, it's like those dark parts of the city where it's kind of dangerous, it's kind of creepy, it's kind of like nothing good kind of happens there. And what I have found personally in my own life that has worked amazing, I would even go as far to say miracles in the difficult things that I've experienced in my own life, is to take whatever memory is really weighing heavy on you, whatever comes to mind. I think in pictures. I don't know how you think. I don't know how anybody else thinks really, but you know how you think. Whatever memory kind of comes to the surface that is like really difficult to deal with, just ask God to come into that memory to bring his light and his redemption and to show you his perspective on it. That prayer, like asking God, inviting God into those hard spots of your life, your memories, can do more in one prayer than you can do in potentially a decade in therapy. There are some amazing therapists out there. I'm not saying anything negative about therapy. And if you go to therapy and it's working for you, I am so ecstatic, thrilled, and happy. That's awesome. But if you're at home right now and you're dealing with this heavy stuff that hasn't been able to go away, you don't know what to do with it, try inviting God into that situation and asking him for his perspective. It will change your life. It has changed my life over and over and over and over again, up to and including today. I wasn't planning on sharing any of that. I had this whole list of things I was going to share about how important your inputs are. Like I read, I'm reading Nelson Mandela's book, Long Walk to Freedom, and I was having a hard day today, and I picked up that book, and the guy spent 26 years in jail. All of a sudden, my problems don't seem so big, right? But I think what I just shared before about inviting Jesus into your memories is probably one of the greatest gifts I can ever give to you or anyone that has ever gone through a difficult thing. Because we've all gone through difficult things. We've all gone through loss. And guess what? There are no loss Olympics. There's no competition for who has experienced the greatest loss. We all experience loss because we're all alive. And no loss is greater than anyone else's loss. In fact, one of my favorite quotes, and I'll kind of wrap up with this, is from one of my favorite authors. Her name is Dr. Edith Eger. She was a Holocaust survivor at the age of 16. They went to Auschwitz, and within, the first hour, she saw her whole family go to the gas chambers. They were just gone. And that was how she started her internment. And one of the last things her mom said to her was, protect your mind, protect your thoughts, because people can do whatever they want to you outside of you, but nobody can ever take what's inside of your head. And that's one of the greatest lessons for life that I could ever bestow upon you too. But the actual experience that I'm alluding to was when she was when she was in her 40s, she went back to school to deal with all this trauma that she went through. She basically suppressed it. Basically just hard charging, like, I just need to do what I need to do. And she was a wreck. But she went back to school and studied emotion, studied psychology, became a licensed therapist. And in healing herself and understanding what is needed for her to heal herself, she's been able to help so many people. But the story that I want to share with you right now to end this, that was so vitriolic to me. I was listening to this audiobook. I was probably 85% done with it. And I heard this story and I think I threw whatever was in my hand and I stopped the audiobook for sure. And I almost didn't finish it because I was so perturbed by it. I was so repulsed by it. But it has such an important message for all of us. And the story goes, when Dr. Edith Eger had her practice in California, she had a 50-minute session with a woman who had just lost her son to a drug overdose. He had died very recently, and the entire session, she just sat with this grieving mom and cried with her. That was the whole session. Devastating. Absolutely tragic. The next session that came in was a woman who spent the entire session complaining, vehemently, that the Cadillac she ordered was not the right color pink. Okay? Okay, so you can't get a bigger contrast than that. But here's the thing that made me want to stop this audiobook and never listen to it ever again, that she said, and she's absolutely right. She said that the pain the woman experienced who was complaining about her Cadillac being the wrong color pink was the same pain experienced by the mother she had just spent 50 minutes with crying over her lost son. And she said, pain is pain, and I'm not here to judge, and no one is here to judge. And I immediately, I shut off the audiobook, and I was like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I was so mad. I was seriously so mad. And then the more I thought about it, the more I realized that she's right. And so, my friends, whatever pain you're going through, it's real. It's present. It's there. I want to encourage you to invite God into that pain. It's called theophostics if you're interested. But invite God into that pain. And because pain is like a darkness. It's like a dull throb. It's like a deep bruise on our soul. And sometimes there's no remedy. And we just have to sit through it, and it comes like waves. But invite God into that place of pain and find a way that allows you to look at it in a way that's not demonstratively negative towards you or towards your life. You have to find some sort of redemption. And kind of a cheat code for this is whatever pain you've experienced, go to those same people who are experiencing or have experienced that same pain and just be with them and serve them. Listen to them, maybe counsel them, whatever. Because in finding purpose in your pain, you will find so much healing. Inviting divinity, inviting God into your pain, you will find so much healing. Because here's the thing. We're alive. We are alive. And that just means we're going to experience loss. And we're going to experience pain. But the whole point of life, the whole idea is to make meaning of every situation and circumstance. And God, I promise you, wants to redeem every ounce of pain you experience, every single ounce. But that only happens if you acknowledge it, you embrace it, you sit with it. I cannot recommend enough journaling. Journal your pain. Just get it out. Share it with a friend that you trust, a therapist, God, in prayer, whatever. Sit with it until that cityscape that you see when you're taking off in a plane, there are no dark patches. There are no places of your memory that are just like black holes of void, of pain, of hurt, of negativity. Bring light into all those places of your soul by remembering them in light of truth, in light of lessons learned, in light of things that you can apply to your future, in light of inviting God into it, and watch and be amazed as your life becomes a beacon of hope and light for others. So that's all I got. Thank you so much for watching. Didn't get to absolutely anything on my notes, but I definitely felt led to share what I did. Leave a comment. Let me know if it's helpful. And appreciate you guys so much. Life's hard. Like, that's one of the reasons that I started doing these, is to, like, hopefully provide tools in a toolbox for life that can help you not only just survive and just white knuckle through it, but like actually enjoy it and really embrace the moments of happiness and really embrace the moments of sadness, because without either, we're not alive, right? So thanks so much for watching. I will see you guys next Tuesday. Thank you. Have a great weekend and God bless. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.